The original Assassin's Creed came out almost 20 years ago, back in 2007. And in that almost 2 decades, I have played every one of the games. I've loved a lot. I've kind of hated a lot. I've even dressed up as Assassin's Creed characters at conventions and stuff like that. I really appreciate what this series has been trying to do. The idea of different cool settings, from the first days of America to the battles of Vikings, all the way through the Crusades and stuff like that. I've really appreciated the strange historical fiction they've been building up. But ever since the very, very start, a lot of fans have been begging them to go to Japan. And I think it's obvious why. I mean, feudal Japan is an era with beautiful art, gorgeous lands, and lots of stuff like samurai and ninjas running around. So it seemed like such an easy choice. And here it is. We finally got it. I beat Assassin's Creed Shadows, and as a fan, it isn't as great as I hoped. But let's dig into the good, the bad, and the ugly. Hey there, gamers. DreamcastGuy here, and this is my brutally honest review. If you could, please give this video a like. It really does help out in the algorithm. So subscribe if you haven't. But let's start by talking about the story, because one of the biggest departures from other Assassin's Creeds is that both of our main characters in this game are playable, but incredibly different in how they play, how they talk, how they're motivated. Naoe, she's a classic style assassin, the blade in the darkness, a person that can do instant takedowns and, leaps of faith and stuff like that. Whereas Yasuke, he was once a slave. He was brought to Japan by the Portuguese and ends up being the personal samurai for famous warlord Nobunaga Oda. Now, in order to explain a lot of the problems I have with this, we got to talk about the story, because while there are amazing moments of burning forts and cool takedowns and stuff, my big problem that I think drastically hurts this game is, weirdly, the size of it. There is some good stuff in it, but it is spread so incredibly thin by stuff that does, sadly, kind of feel like filler. The entire tale of Shadows, if you're trying to beat it, you're actually focused on just reaching the ending credits as fast as possible. It can easily take you 50, 60, even 70 hours for a clean, focused run of the main quests. At the start of the game, we see the background of both of our heroes, how Yasuke comes to Japan and how Naoe loses her village. It gets burned to the ground by this army that's trying to take over Japan. Now, when we see these people kind of set free, when they're set out here seeking vengeance, we learn that the group that is behind a lot of the battles and bloodshed that are kind of wrecking Japan right now is a group called the Shinbaku. These are masked murderers that are seemingly connected to maybe the Assassin's Creed Order or to the Templars, but we really don't understand how. So here's the part that felt incredibly odd by me, which is that for the first 15 hours of the game, I only played as Naoe. She's the only playable character for the entire opening of the game. And in a lot of ways, she feels like the main character. At least that's kind of how it felt. So if you're noticing that there's mostly gameplay of her throughout this video, it's because, honestly, I liked playing as her more, I liked her story more, and she kind of feels like the focus of the tale. At the beginning of the game, as you open up in your burnt village, everything's been torched, the ninja clan has been butchered, and you want some vengeance. You want to settle the score. So she writes a kill list. She wants to take down, to unmask, and destroy each member of the Shinbaku. But these people, in order to take them down, it takes some recovery. The opening of the game, I feel like they do such a good job of seeing Naoe try to learn to talk, to fight, to walk, to live again after not only losing her family, but being so badly hurt by the destruction of her village. And so I feel like this first 10-15 hours, you really get a good grasp of Shadows and how big this game is, but it starts to kind of fall apart once it opens up. When everything becomes freeform, it really gets hurt by the storytelling, because this is what they call non-linear story. Now, what that means is that you have an objective board. You get a list of all your different targets. It's a series of quest chains. Each leader has a set of objectives to figure out who they are, what their weaknesses are, and when best to strike. So that's pretty cool. It's stuff like if you figure out that one guy's in charge of the commerce of the kingdom, you can upset his supply lines and forge manifestos. You can sneak into his base and take him down. There's a lot of interesting build-up to each of the targets. But what I feel like absolutely does not work is that it makes it where the story is not tight or clean. It makes it where, because everything feels so incredibly disconnected, since you can take down the targets in any order you want, everything stands on its own. The characters never talk about the past. They never talk about future goals. It is always just purely, hey, here's what's directly in front of me. I have to take down the ox or the beggar or the queen. Now, doing this stuff, it still feels cool, but it completely lacks emotional momentum. And I feel like that does kind of cheapen it, where yes, it's nice that we're getting revenge. Yes, it's cool when you take down these targets, but both Naoe and Yasuke, they never really feel satisfied. They always kind of feel like they're just floating through it. This might be the first game I've ever played where watching a YouTube video of just the cutscenes would tell the story better. And I feel like part of it's just because going around doing stuff, it feels very slow on purpose in a way that absolutely doesn't work. And the reason why is because instead of just giving you a quest marker saying, hey, here's where the next guy is, you get these clues. It'll say, go east of the river of Warlands, or, oh, the next guy you're trying to find is south of Kyoto in a tower that overlooks the city. Now, this isn't too much of a detriment, but it does feel a bit weird. You can do this thing where you can find the exact location of your next target by deploying scouts. They're like essentially spies, but they're a very, very limited resource. You can only do like very few spies. I think you can deploy 2 or 3 spies per hour of the game. So there were a lot of times where I wanted to find the next target and I just had to wander the countryside until I stumbled upon them. Now, let me be clear. I do think the story of Assassin's Creed Shadows is great. What's actually happening, the acting, the writing and stuff, that's cool. But the problem is that literally 70% of the game is being completely lost. I mean, yes, I think Yasuke's motivation to solve the mysteries of the Assassin's Creed Order, that's fantastic. Him learning about his place in Japan, it's freaking incredible. Naoe's journey to figure out exactly how dark she's willing to be for the bloodshed she knows she needs to spill. That is badass. But these major developments being spread out so much, it just doesn't work. I mean, seriously, I've had times where the beginning of a conversation and the end of that, like basically the follow through on a plot beat, was 10 hours apart. I mean, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying that it feels super, super weird to take a story and spread it out so much in a world that is fun to explore. But why even make such an interesting story with so many different threads if it takes so long to actually see it even slightly come together? Now, with that being said, let's talk a bit about the other aspects of this, because while you're doing this game, it's not just about the main story. It is about the side quests. Because, yes, there are people doing the typical stuff. Hey, can you help me find supplies that were stolen by a pirate? Or, hey, defend these farmers from these local bandits. I think a lot of the side quest stuff is cool, but it almost makes me more conflicted. I like playing Shadows. I think it feels really good to just do stealth combat, to be riding your horse through the snow, to be going up a hill to try and unlock that next part of the map and stuff like that. But my thing is that a lot of this, I kept just stopping and saying, okay, when does this all fit? But let me talk about the gameplay, the leveling, and the graphics. Over the last 20 years of Assassin's Creed, we've seen the combat evolve a lot. Originally, the games were much more focused on that slower, more sneaky action, which I did enjoy. But over time, they've been making them more about open combat, being able to stand your ground and fight off 20 people by yourself before somebody rings an alarm and you just sprint away. Where what I find the most interesting about Shadows, that absolutely is fantastic, is the fact that both of these characters that we have they're the best of both worlds. They're the best of old school Assassin's Creed and new school Assassin's Creed. Naoe, she is very much the original assassin. She's the person who can't really take a hit. She has almost no health, and she doesn't do a load of damage, but she is practically invisible. She can stealth well, she can climb incredibly fast, she can scale a wall in seconds, she has a grapple hook that allows her to get onto roofs. You can actually swing and go to a lot of places that Yasuke straight up can't go. It's so cool, and it's nice to be able to just sprint while sneaking to take down targets through crazy attacks and stuff. She has hiding spots that only she can go to. This is legit some of the best stealth gameplay I have ever played in any game ever. Even beyond the original Assassin's Creeds, which were some of my favorite, this feels better. Tracking a target, following their movements, being able to find that perfect time when they're alone to pop out and kill them, it never stops being fun. But I also think it's interesting that both Yasuke and Naoe, they have different weapon styles, meaning that they're not just stuck with one weapon. Naoe, she primarily uses like smaller weapons. She has like tantos, a tiny katana and stuff like that. It makes it where she is able to do quick attacks and poison, whereas Yasuke, this man is a tank. He is a 6-foot-tall murder machine that practically just eats anybody in his path. He just shoves them in a blender, presses puree, and says, "Goodbye, sayonara." His weapons are more about raw damage, blunt smashing devices, spears, guns. I mean, he is here to just literally monstrously crush people, and it feels great. Both of them, I feel like these are exciting characters to get good at. And thankfully, they share experience points. And what that means is that if you're trying to do a quest stealthy, you can like sneak in, take down some targets, test the defenses of the fort or something. And if it's too hard and you want to swap over to Yasuke, the human wrecking ball, who can literally just knock down doors and stuff, you can swap to him at any time. You can switch between the two characters at any time. It's very easy. You just do it in the menus. There's a couple like quest missions, or when you're in the middle of combat, it doesn't let you switch characters, but most of the time you can instantly switch. And what's cool is that they both have their own talent trees. They both have 6 different talent trees. There's 3 for each of your weapons, and then there's 3 that have a bunch of passives. So basically making you better at defense or offense or poisons or tools. But this brings me to my other gripe about the game, which is that while you get talent points for leveling up, they call that mastery, they deadlock you with this system called knowledge, where even though you are unlocking talent points, you actually can't access almost any of the tree until you do tons of side collectibles. Now, these take many different forms. You can raid optional forts, you can pray at shrines, you can collect scrolls. These side tasks unlock knowledge, which unlock the higher tiers of mastery. My issue is that you really do start hitting a wall at one point during the main story. As you get later and later in the game, these skills, these higher parts of it, are necessary for some of the targets. You need to be able to scale faster, move faster, kill faster, and so you have to grind. You can't just do side quests for the experience points and stuff. You have to constantly be searching for that knowledge to get the very necessary skill trees. And while I do enjoy side stuff, I actually think the side stuff is fun. It's the fact that this game is so big. The sheer scale of Assassin's Creed Shadows, it makes it feel a bit flat. There is so much random busy work in every direction that you could easily spend hundreds of hours playing this, but about 30 hours into beating this game, I started to feel some serious fatigue. I mean, after you kill the 15th major side boss that gives you a 2% boost in damage, it starts to feel kind of stale. Like, even if it's glorious at one point, those opening moments feel great. After a while, it feels really repetitive, and it does suck to open up the objectives board and go, man, I'm 40% through this game, and now I have to grind for 10 hours before I'm allowed to see what the next Shinbaku members' plans are. Now, I have to say, I really do like the fact that both Yasuke and Naoe both feel incredibly strong in such different ways. A lot of times I've found myself in a lot of the main missions, they'll tell you, hey, pick a character, you're about to do this big raid or something like that. It did feel cool to do a mission as Naoe, to sneak in, to completely be undetected, to try to destroy alarms, to take down targets, and use her eagle vision to perfectly find a target and take them down with traps and bells and distractions. It feels awesome, and it really does feel like classic Assassin's Creed. But sometimes I'm like, you know what? I'm sick of this. The boss is kicking my ass. Naoe does not have very much health. Even with really good gear, she takes a ridiculous amount of damage. I had to pretty much take 0 damage from some bosses. There were literally bosses where if I got hit once, I would die. During those moments, it felt good to play a fort as Yasuke. And you know what? Yasuke, he has almost no mobility. He can't climb. He has no grapple hook. When he does get on top of stuff, he pretty much falls off instantly. The man can't stealth to save his life. But it does feel good to just walk into a courtyard with a bunch of freaking samurai and start butchering them. It's nice that both characters definitely not only feel balanced, they both feel so complete as characters, and I like that. The thing is that the entire game being the same cycle over and over and over again, it really does start to hurt the overall package. Track a target, do 4 quests to find their identity, go to the next big castle and invade it. All right, now you got to grind until you're strong enough to get the next Shinbaku member. After a bit, you start to go, okay, even if this is a good time, even if the bits are starting to come together, they never really connect in a way that's satisfying. Now let me talk a bit about the graphics and just the overall presentation of this, because I beat this on a PlayStation 5 Pro and I think it looks really, really, really good. The 2 real standouts though are the facial animations and the weather effects. When people are having long talks about betrayal or ceremonies or the meaning of honor, it's cool that the camera will really zoom in on their expressions of pain or conflict or hatred. And it's really well animated. I think it does help. You can definitely see the clearly massive budget of this game. They really cared about conveying the story to the best of their ability. And yeah, I do have some problems with the pacing of it, but there's no denying the fact that this game definitely looks good. But what else definitely kind of just blew my mind is the environments. Scorched forts, vast rivers, crazy intricate battles playing out all around you. I think Shadows looks great, and it's even more wild that it looks great because there are 4 different seasons. As time passes, things progress from winter to summer to fall, and there's tons of different stuff that's different about it. The people actually react. In cutscenes, you can see that people have been doing stuff, and it's in that particular season. But it does have a bit of an issue, which is that the seasons take a very long time to go from one season to the next. And there's some way to fast forward from seasons to seasons, but it never worked for me. Like there's a way on the map menu to say next season, please. And it kept saying, you can't skip seasons right now. That kind of sucked. I mean, time stops when you're in cutscenes. So when you're doing a bunch of big major story stuff all at once, you can get stuck in a season for hours and hours and hours. And I definitely started to get very sick of the snow. I wish I could just pick a season or choose a season at will. Because yes, that would break the immersion. It doesn't really make sense, but I got really sick of some of these environments. I want to be able to see cherry blossom trees and people out in the farmlands. I don't want to just see constant snow for hours and hours and hours because I can't figure out how to just progress the dang season. Assassin's Creed Shadows is a very, very big game with a lot to do, a lot to see, and a lot to kill. And I respect what they're trying to do. As a fan, I think that what they're trying to do, the greatness of that, is pretty damn fantastic. I just wish that they weren't so obsessed with Ubisoft size. If you're worried about getting the most bang for your buck, buying a game for $70 and it actually being $70 worth of content, that's definitely this. But if you're looking for a tight narrative experience, something that's going to wow you from start to finish, this ain't that. But I gotta say, after it's all said and done, after side quests, main quests, upgrades, crazy crafting, everything else, I gotta say, I am glad that we finally got Assassin's Creed in Japan. And even if it's not as glorious as I probably hoped, it's still darn good. But Now that we've heard some good and some bad, let's go over to the ratings board and put a big number on it. I am giving Assassin's Creed Shadows an 8 out of 10. Thank you so much for watching this video. This was actually one of the hardest reviews I've ever made, just because you would not even believe how many hours this took. I mean, weeks and weeks of playing and beating and writing. This script is over 2,300 words long. It was the longest script I've ever written. But basically what I'm saying is, thank you for watching. Thank you for being awesome. And thank you for watching to the very, very end. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and please keep dreaming. Oh man, what? I'm glad we got this done. If we get another Assassin's Creed in Japan someday, personally, I hope it's a bit tighter, a bit more contained, the way that Assassin's Creed Mirage was. But maybe that's just me. You guys rock. Stay real. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.